Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So inshallah, bismillah ta'ala, I'm going to try to break down the sciences in Islam to a basic terminology so a person can understand how to study and what they're studying. And I'm going to answer your question like after this. I'll say, I will say this. In the beginning, it wasn't really malicious. I don't think. And the isnad, I'm going to get to it, inshallah. So, with your sciences, okay? So, you have Quran, which is Tafsirs. This science, basically, it is what it is. It gets you familiar with the Quran, where you really understand what you should be getting from it is exactly who Allah is, what Allah's promises is, the breakdown of what was sent before us, so that we use that as an example and don't fall into the same mistakes that the people that had the deen before us, the way of life that came with the religion that Allah Azza wa Jal sent down. And it shows what they did to earn Allah's anger and what they was doing to be misguided and led astray. So the Quran breaks those things down to where we know what to avoid. The path to Jannah is laid down in it, and the path to the hellfire is laid down in it. The path to rewards and good Islamically in this life is laid down in it, and the path to punishments and turmoils and agonies and ailments and bad in this life, even if you have good in the dunya, billions of dollars and all of that, fame, whatever, right? Now, the tafsirs keep you from turning these things into your own interpretation. And then it explains it the way that it's supposed to be understood, right? When you start to dig into the tafsirs. Now, tafsirs is broke down into different types. There's tafsirs by the language. There's tafsirs that's written for, like, if you're a layman, you understand, like a tafsir sati, where they just familiar with a lot of the tafsirs, and then they simplify it for you. You got like tafsirs Jalalain. So that science, Quran, tafsirs, these is the things that's supposed to get you in tune with Allah Azza wa Jal and His religion, and really understand it for implementation. Alright? As a foundation, your base foundation of Islam and your deen is Quran, hands down. So then, of course, when it comes to the Hadith, Hadith teach you how, when you go through the science and then you learn the science of Hadiths, especially with what's weak, what's da'if, what's fabricated, what's Hassan, or what's Hassan, what's Sahih, and those things. Once you get past those sciences, which now in this day and time you really don't have to per se, you can learn it, but you really don't have to, because of people like Imam Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi, and may Allah be pleased with them, and others to go on, who laid all this down and collected them and separated them and sifted them so that we don't necessarily have to do that. But through the science of Hadith, you learn how to implement legally, to do things in a way that Allah is going to accept it based off of Allah's words in the Quran. Allah is only going to accept, this is His religion. This is His religion. Alright? And there's I don't want to use that word, because people could have took that the wrong way. But when you study Hadith, for implementation instead of argumentation, right, your deen will change. And then you will also see all the athar. The athar, which is the narrations from the companions, right, his wives and people who was close around. Then when you look at the athar in there, you get to see how they understood the religion and how the Rasul gave it to them, or how they will speak about, we was in a group and we was confused about what the Rasul said, so we went to the Rasul, right? We went to the Rasul, and then he clarified for us what he told us. Alright? So from that you can get minhaj. You could get methodology. What's the methodology? Refer it back to Allah and His Messenger. See, they was able to go straight to the Rasul. So we take a page out of the science of usul and go try to find it in the Quran first, that foundation, to see what Allah commanded, what was the order from Allah. Then you go to the Hadith to see how it's implemented. Alright? So inshallah, as we break this down, this will make a little more sense why you have different, why people all over the place, right? So our Hadith, just simplifying it, Quran tells you what to do. Hadith tell you how to do it in a manner that Allah is going to accept it. So then you have Fiqh. Alright? Fiqh is how Quran and Sunnah, the understanding how to implement the Quran and Sunnah in a way that Allah is going to accept it. Okay? Now, because of madhabs, sometimes now when they go to fiqh, generally in this day and time, they're going to start to go to the madhabs. Some people is going to totally skip going to the Quran and Sunnah first. But some people don't know how to do that. So the madhab make things easy for them. Well, I could just go to this madhab. The only problem is when you run into a mistake that's in that madhab. Alright? And you might be a fanatic, but that's basically what your fiqh is, of the fiqh of how to understand the Quran and Sunnah. Now, technically, sometimes with your fiqh, right, is, and with the madhabs, is for situations like this. With the way that the world is changing, where they went from riding animals to now we driving cars, right? They lived in a time where they didn't have no bills. you know, like we do, you know, electric bills, water bills, you know, they pretty much could eat what they bought. As far as they got a camel, they could slaughter the camel. They didn't have to do like a grocery store type thing. Now, there was forms of it, because you could go to the market and buy you some herbs and, you know, some vegetables, but then, you know, buy you a cow. But it wasn't like what we do, where it's already chopped up, the meat, this and that. But anyway, so when you look at this, at that point in time, anything that Allah said you could eat is what made that food halal. A cow was automatically halal. Chicken, lamb, fish, anything from the ocean. Okay? Camel, but what the Hadith say, make your wudu because they from the shaitan and other things that said, right? But it was just halal. Now, in this day and time, you might see some chicken in the store. It's not halal now just because it was chicken. This hamburger might not be halal, right? When the cows, I'm not gonna speak on that. But so then certain fiqh rulings. So now fiqh rulings start coming in. People start asking, okay, I live in this area. There's no halal markets. There's no this. There's no that. What about the food that's in the grocery store? So then one sheikh may say, well, in accordance with Imam Hanifa, he looked into an issue like this. That food is considered food from the people of the book. Then Imam Malik may say, well, as long as it wasn't, they didn't like pray over it. As long as when they killed the meat, they didn't slaughter it for whatever deity they worship. You got to make sure that. So you got to go through the process and see what they did when they slaughtered it. Then just say Bismillah before you eat it. So now you have what they're going to call two rulings. So I'm trying to explain that new issues that wasn't really 100% addressed because they wasn't issues during the time of Quran and Sunnah. Right? So then you might have Imam Shafi'i who goes and look, and because his Imam Shafi'i and Hanbali is more hadith based with their rulings, right? So they may go look at the Quran, usul, let's go look at the Quran, and then the Quran may say, okay, you can eat because they looking at what Imam Hanifa said. That's considered to be food of the people of the book. You can eat it. Imam Malik may say, you got to see how it was slaughtered first. They might have slaughtered it in the name of Jehovah. And then the Quran ayat, don't eat nothing unless the name of Allah has been on it. So Imam Shafi'i may say, if you can't go see how it was slaughtered, just make sure you say Bismillah before you eat it. Because then they may look at more rulings and say, under these situations, you're driven to necessity. There's absolutely, you in an area where they don't have halal stores. But the meat falls under the category of halal. What's making it not halal? Because there's a difference between zabiha and halal. Zabiha is basically the raising and slaughtering process. So you understand? So they may say, yeah, all chicken is halal, but this chicken isn't halal because it may have antibiotics in it. You know what I'm saying? It roamed freely and it ate its own feces. So they look into all of this, and over the years the rulings start changing, because now they might start mass slaughtering chickens by electrocuting them. So they not slaughtering these chickens in the name of Jehovah or the name of Buddha. Then this chicken was raised like on an Amish farm where they do stuff in a kosher manner, which is similar to halal. Make sure all the blood is out of it. It's just like eating Jewish and halal meat, right? But they may had electrocuted it so that it could pass out, and then they slit the throat. So they had started looking at all of that and start basing rulings. But and when all else fails, it's going to fall to that general ruling: you're eating out of necessity. Because when you forced to eat something out of necessity, you can eat pork. Just don't exceed the limits. So that's basically how fiqh is supposed to work. All of them might view it different based off of the evidence that they know, or if there isn't any evidence that they seen, they may knew of another scholar that they looked up to, and then a scholar may have said something about something else, but it doesn't apply to this, and then they looked at what that scholar said, and you know what? Since he said that, I can adjust this ruling, and that's what they use for evidence. You understand? So that's just kind of how to give you how fiqh works. So when you start to study fiqh, or like comparative fiqh, where they compare the madhabs and this and that, but basically it shows you and trains you how to go and look for dalil, how to go to the usul, the foundation of the Quran, look through it thoroughly, and then see what it said. Then you look at your tafsirs, you look at your athars, and then you see the situation what went on, and then you see the hadiths that's attached to it. Then you look at all the hadiths in that section. That's fiqh teaches you how to do that. Now, for the ones who don't do that, or they don't want to do that, they just going to say, I'm Shafi'i, so no matter what go on, right or wrong, I'm doing what the Shafi'i madhab said. I'm doing what the Hanafi madhab said. Okay? Just like, for example, when you look at the Quran ayat, and it refers to how you could eat any fresh meat or the sweet meat from the sea, the ocean, from the water. Right? Now, in the Hanafi madhab, they say that it uses the word samak. When you go look at the Quran, from the ayahs I seen, it don't use the word samak. Any fresh, clean meat, sweet meat that come from the sea, from the ocean, from the water. Alright? You can eat it. And even if it dies of itself. It ain't like because it's in the water and different things, okay? But in the Hanafi madhab, and I'm mentioning this because it was somebody who seen something, a post where somebody was talking about it in the Hanafi madhab, and they basically was saying how you can't eat any seafood, no shrimp, anything with a shell on it, because they don't classify as samak or samak, however people pronounce it, the Arabic word for fish. But it does, the Quran, when you go to the usul, it doesn't say fish. It says sweet meat from the ocean, from what I seen. Alright? So they base the ruling off, we don't declare clams, anything with a shell, octopus, jellyfish, anything. Technically, and to be honest with you, when you dig deeper into it, they say even if it's a fish that don't have scales. You know what I'm saying? If it's a fish that don't have scales, it doesn't qualify. Alright? But that's not what the deen says. And even when you dig into the hadith where a whale came up ashore and got stuck, and they was going to war and they was doing some different things and there was nothing else for them to eat, so they sat around and did what they had to do and they ate from the whale. From what I know and from what I understand, a whale doesn't have scales. So if in the Quran and Sunnah, one, the usul, it came from the water. It's permissible. It did die of itself because they didn't kill it. It died there, but it wasn't rotten. It was still clean, fresh meat. It wasn't like a dead, rotten fish. So they're in accordance with the Quran. This is the Salaf. The Rasul wasn't with them. Alright? So, what they did, referred it to Quran and Sunnah. They ate the whale. But then some of them wasn't sure about it. So when they got back to the Rasul, they told him what they did. You know, what we did was this permissible. The Rasul approved of what they did. What you did was in accordance with Sharia. Alright? Now, a particular madhab may not, at the time, years ago, probably didn't know about that hadith. You understand? So they issued a whole entirely different ruling. But some people, and my first time being made aware of it, because here, the masjid, which started off War Deen, was taken over by some Tabligis. And Tabligis, generally, for the most part, be Hanafi. And some of them be Deobandi Hanafis, like a little bit more extreme version of Hanafiya, right? And one of the brothers had, we had some restaurants here, so we was in there eating, and the brother had got a bunch of shrimp. And one of the Indian dudes had he tasted one, and then the other one got on him. We can't eat that. That's haram. How dare you eat that in the masjid, and then try to get on the other brother for even bringing it in the masjid. And we was looking like. So then he started talking about how shrimp and any type of shellfish was haram and all this other stuff. But then they started trying to quote, and this is where they lost me. They tried to quote something in Leviticus or something like that. You know what I'm saying? As a ruling. No, see, Quran say something different. You know. So anyway, they try to quote some Bible verse, man. We on Islam. So that was the first time I was made aware of it. And this was in like 2008, maybe. But anyway, but they Hanafi. So you'll see some things in there when you know how to look for yourself that will go against Quran and Sunnah. In all of them. Or I ain't going to say go against. They may have, like we say, the evidence may have not reached them. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how fiqh gets used. You have new issues, separating women in a masjid. How do we do this? Can we wear this kind of hair? Is it permissible? Is we off the minhaj because we have some color on our baya? And then you know what I'm saying? So all these different things. So that's how fiqh is supposed to be used. You can just go to what a madhab say if you want to, which is what a lot of people do. Or they'll just add, now it done broke down to where we just ask whoever we go to the masjid with or whatever. Or we'll just make up what we want to do on our own. So when you start to learn fiqh, you learn how to do those things. Look at the usul in the Quran. Then you go to the hadith, and then what comes next? Ijma. What was the consensus that the companions and the Salaf had on this issue? Like you have a situation where before madhabs, there's a hadith which they refer to the people of Ra'i, right? The Rasul told them, because it was during the times of war, and told them, when y'all go to the next city, don't make salat until you get to the next city. So while they was traveling, one part of the group said, if we wait to get there, we're going to miss salat. So we should pray now. Then the other one said, no, we got to do what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to do. He said, don't pray till we get to the next city, so we're not praying until we get to the next city. So as they keep going on, and now the time is going out, it's a debate between them. So long story short, a portion of them went ahead and prayed, and then the other ones waited to pray until they got there. So then, when the Rasul finally got there, or when they got back around the Rasul, they told him about the situation. And he didn't object to what either one of them did, because one of them went and did what they thought was best in accordance with Islam, with what they knew from Hadith and what they knew from the Quran. So this was them doing a form of what you're going to call fiqh. Of course, it's ijtihad and this and that, but they both weighed out the situations. We're going to do what the Rasul said. So like even with fiqh, like some of the examples they use, the Rasul used the miswak. You have some people who will never use a toothbrush, because the sunnah is miswak. You can't replace it with a toothbrush. You can't use these fancy toothpastes. And then they'll be like, we Ahlul Hadith. Fiqh will be like, you could use something else that qualifies with brushing your teeth. One madhab might say yes, one mad. This is just an example. So for when people start to studying, you can see what the science does. Then Sharia is basically your law. Just like how we have laws in our, and anywhere we live, you have laws in your city, in your state, in your country. Driving, if you get to fighting in the street, if you walking around publicly intoxicated, if you break the laws, there's punishment. You can go to jail, you can get fined, you can end up in prison. Well, in Islam, there's laws as well. Now, some of the things where we fall short is we don't really know the laws. So just because it may not be the law of our country, it's still the laws of Islam. So we might be mujrimun because we breaking the laws of Sharia, but we don't think we doing anything wrong because we feel like we're obeying the laws of wherever we live. So Sharia is extremely important, and in Sharia kind of use all of it: Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and then like some countries, like if you end up in court, like I know a sister and brother who was a sister who went over there and married a foreigner, but like her brother was with her. So whatever was going on, they had to go through a divorce. And over there, you go to the court and get a divorce. You can go to the court if there's some issues. Like if he won't let you out, he won't grant you a cooler, and he beating on you, and he on drugs, you can go to court. Just like you here, like in the United States, you can go to court for a divorce. So when she went to the court to get it situated out, they asked her, which madhab do you follow? You see what I'm saying? What madhab do you follow? So we could do this in accordance with your madhab. Now, she didn't really follow a madhab. She didn't even know what was really to him. So she had to explain the situation in full detail. And then they had to study it and look at the situation and go Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, madhab just look around for all this because it may be a new issue, and then basically, long story short, they ended up granting the sister her divorce. But that's how, when you in a court of law, that's how they happen. Just like here, it might be a sister who got a deadbeat baby father, and she want to put him on child support. And they say, no, you can't put the brother on child support because that's a tagut. But at the same time, they're not going to make him take care of his kid. And then have her thinking you can't go to the court. But if you was overseas and you got a baby father who won't take care of his kids, whether you married or divorced, you could go to the court, get a ruling, see? But we serious lacking in Sharia law. You know, just like one of these things, you have these people who think Dakik. So, like right here, this book is called Sharia Islamic Law. Very beneficial book. The crazy thing is, I done gave this same book away twice. I gave it away to one person because I was so Hadith based for so long before I really sat in classes, and I just knew a brother who had this, and he used to talk about it, so I just ended up ordering one. He had like a pocket size one though, and I just ended up ordering it, and when I read it, I didn't like it because it's madhab based off all the madhabs. It shows what Hanafis, and it touch a lot of issues. It don't cover all of Sharia law, but some of your general things that you might have to go through, and like custody, which is the point I was on before I got the book with the kids. You have a lot of people who think as soon as the woman marries somebody else, the kids automatically go to the father. That's not true. When you go and look at it, there's some differences. Like some of the things is, one, if it's a daughter, if she marries another man and they finna move to another city, but the city has to have a certain amount of mile, it has to be so far away from you. Now if she's in a situation like that where she's finna move somewhere and it's a whole entire different city from you, then the daughter should come with you. But then you have other fiqh rulings, just like here. If you can't provide for the daughter, you can't take care of the kid or provide a better home, but the person she's marrying can, then they might recommend that the daughter stays there, and they fear Allah, but the daughter knows she got to cover and move a certain way around this person. But it's not an automatic, oh, you got married, you got to give all your kids up. It don't go like that. And like a lot of that stuff you see in Sharia law. And you know, I see some people who be taken advantage of because they don't know, and then they have a particular group who pick and choose how they want to do things. You can't put him on child support, right? Because that's the tagut. But he can go do some things and take the kid from you, and then he got to do it where there's some paperwork so he can get the benefits, the apartments, the low-income housing, the food stamps and things like that. So anyway, that's how Sharia law works. So sometimes when you see the differences, so you might see a person who studies fiqh, and then when he studied fiqh, he chose a particular madhab, even if it's in a university or even if he went and sat somewhere. So if he studied Hanafi fiqh, and even in a university, and let's say he graduated with a bachelor's degree in Hanafi fiqh, he might get around some people and say, y'all can't, like he might be the imam of a masjid, And then he tell everybody in the masjid, y'all can't eat any shellfish. You know what I'm saying? You can't eat any fish that doesn't have scales. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure. Do salmon have scales? I don't know. But it be some fish that people might eat and it might not have scales. I don't think tuna fish have scales. Some people crazy about tuna. I don't know, but I'm just saying, so this might cause some conflict. But then it might be a person who's has a bachelor's in Hadith. They might bump heads. It might cause issues in the masjid. And this is why certain things be going on, because people have expertise in different fields. And not a lot of times, but sometimes it be the people from Hadith arguing with people from Fiqh who's, instead of Fiqh and looking at the evidence themselves, they going strictly with what a madhab said instead of looking at the whole situation. And when it comes involved looking at the whole situation, there's a whole lot that had to go into it. And so then you have a breakdown where, now I'm going to answer the brother question. You have a breakdown. This all tying in the same subject matter. So the brother basically asked me about the isnad thing and people being on the list, and they listed as people who give dawah. They're fit to give dawah. So now, and show how these differences and how these misconceptions could come in. A person from Tafsirs, I'm going to say this, I'm going to be honest. Everybody I seen that studied Tafsir, I just got to put this side note in. The students from Tafsir, they be the mildest, from my experience. Man, they be the mildest, most well-mannered students that I ever seen. And then especially if they started off in Hadith and then switched over, like Sheikh Uthaymeen. You know what I'm saying? He had a degree in Hadith and a degree in Aqidah. Quran and Tafsirs and stuff, right? Sheikh Uthaymeen was like, anyway, they be some of the best, most mildest students. They be more balanced. But anyway, when you have people who on a list for dawah, you're a new Muslim. Just because you call somebody to Islam doesn't mean you can teach them about Islam. Certain things you can probably teach them how to make wudu. You could teach them how to make salat. And then other little things that you know. If you don't know Al-Fatiha, say it in English. Go to Jumu'ah on Fridays. Because you knew yourself. So it's limited on the information that you can give them about Islam. But you're giving dawah. So you have people who be not from any particular group. Some of these people who you see on YouTube and all this and all that type of stuff giving dawah, certain people may bash them, but they're just a dawah person. Their objective is to go call people to Islam. So you might see them debating Christians about the Bible, trying to convince them this and that about the Bible. You might see that, but they might not be able to start and be kicking some Sharia, the laws of Islam, or able to go to the Quran and pull out particular surahs that break down a whole lot of laws that end up in Sharia. They may not know how to do none of that because they haven't touched those fields. They just a da'i. They call people to Islam. So you see some people on a particular list that's listed as da'is. So what is their job? Their job is to call people to Salafiyah. And they do that as far as terminology. But just because you call somebody to Salafiyah don't mean you could teach them how to be Salafi. And especially when I first started off, I had that incorrect understanding about what being Salafi was as well, that I got from them. I thought I was taught, I ain't gonna say taught, but I was told. It was instilled in me, but because the way I move around, it didn't sit right with me. I was told, because you have people like the Tablighi Jamaat, who's Sunni, you got the Asharis, who's Sunni, you got the Sufis, who may refer to themselves as Sunnis, which, you know, if you ask them, is they Sunni, some of them will say yes, some of them will. We Sunnis, but we under the Sufi order, a Sufi order or a particular tariqah, I think that's what they call it. But anyway, so due to that, we call ourselves Salafi so that nobody confuse us with one of these Tablighis or one of these other groups. And we don't do any madhabs or any of that because we follow Islam with the understanding that the Salaf had. Because the Prophet said the Salaf was the best 3 generations. So that's why a lot of the teachings that a lot of people is getting is really dawah. And then it's really basic. So that's why you're just going to hear Salafi, 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 Aqidah, 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 Aqidah. You know what I'm saying? This right here, Kitab Tawheed, this is Aqidah. This is Tawheed. So this is why this is, because they're really giving you dawah. Because they're da'is. It don't really go any further than that. They may bust out an explanation of another book from a scholar, so instead of them trying to get a book, they're just going to go buy the explanation of Sheikh Fawzan and try to teach it to you because they haven't went somewhere and learned the book and can teach it without getting an explanation from somebody else. I'm not saying all of them, but this is why. So when with this understanding, we call ourselves Salafis to separate from them, to where nobody confuses us with them. So what came with that was we only go to Salafi masjids because we don't mingle with them. This was in the early times. This was before, and that's what I'm saying. All of it, what it turned into. See, in the beginning, I don't think it was malicious, but then some people got a hold of the dawah due to circumstances that possibly shouldn't have had. Then it went from, no, those masjids is fine, but we just don't go to them because we don't want anybody to confuse us with them. And then instead of us learning Quran and Sunnah with the understanding, you might go there and learn Hanafi madhab, but they're not going to tell you that's what they're teaching. You might go up in there and, you know, learn some Ash'ari stuff and you don't know it because you got to be careful who you take knowledge from, and right now you're a layman, so y'all don't know. So that's how I started, and then that turned into all these masjids bid'ah. See what it grew into? all these people, if you go talk there, because you talk to a person who went there and gave a lecture, now you on a dean of your companion. Even though you might not know him, you just salamed him because he Muslim. Now you're a deviant. And then at first, before it went to deviant, before it was innovator. You an innovator, they innovators, you ahlul bid'ah. Scholars got on them. Y'all can't just be declaring people innovators. What's the innovation? You can't declare that masjid no masjid of innovation. What's the bid'ah that they're on? So then they changed the terminology to deviant. But treated them like what? Innovators. Just like the same thing with the plan of the Tafsir word. We're not gonna declare you a kafir. We're just gonna take you off the minhaj. You're not Salafi. You're not an approved Salafi by us da'is. So now we're going to treat you like Tafsir has been declaimed upon you. In the beginning, it wasn't like that. You see what I'm saying? This is just what it morphed into when it got in the hands of certain people. And then while this was going on, a lot of people who was the students who had a knowledge now, who got the PhDs and the master's degrees, they was away at school. So they wasn't here and they wasn't in the UK in different places because they was at school while these people built their foundation and their following up with rhetoric. Yes, Salafiyya is the haq. But calling yourself Salafi to be, because like at one point in time, they wouldn't even say, they would say, you can't even say that you Sunni. You just Salafi, you can't say you Sunni. Then they got corrected. So now some of them you will see that be like, I'm Sunni, but I'm on the minhaj of the Salaf. You understand? So, but then you still have some who don't. Now we ain't no Sunnis. We Salafi. We don't do no madhabs. And this is, and like this is the funny thing even about the list that I pointed out. Under the list of scholars from the Salaf, they got Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Hanbal. How y'all got them on the list of Salafi scholars that we could take from, but then reject their madhabs? We don't do no madhabs, but you praying in accordance with the Hanafi, you praying in accordance with the Hanbali madhab though, but you don't know it. See, but that's why the education is only going to go to a certain point. It's always, you not going to know that it's just always something extremely basic. And then it's just going to keep being that for 10 years, 20 years. It's been this over for 20 some years. And then, you know, they step up and do other things. You might get some of them that'll bust out a book of Tafsir and read the Tafsir to you. You know what I'm saying? But take the Quran and then give you Tafsir from here that's accurate, because they got Tafsirs memorized and they done been through these classes and they've been prodded, they've been tested, they done passed and this and that. They can't do that. But they could cloak it under, as long as I'm reading this book and I'm being safe, I'm just giving dawah. Yeah. So this is how certain things happen. So with the isnad thing, when I was saying about I'm on the isnad, I mean this is my isnad, it has a connected chain, but I'm not on it. What that means is the person who taught me is connected to the isnad. So sometimes what they be telling people is, you answer these 5 questions and we're going to give you a certificate and attach you to the isnad. It don't work that way. Because one, because people don't understand the science. Although years ago, every sentence they said had Jawat Tardil in it. Y'all notice that stuff been over with for some years. They can't do that no more because they didn't even really know what Jawat Tardil was. It's a science of hadith and grading narrators in the chains of isnad. One of the things for you to be in an isnad, they had to be trustworthy. Right now you have some people, if they see somebody's name in an isnad that wasn't trustworthy, they'll weaken the whole hadith. And I'm saying that to say, when you're going through things and certain ijazas and going to get things and you're going to be attached to an isnad, to the person who did the book, they're going to make sure you're a trustworthy person. Or they're not going to do it. You have some scholars, when people go the scholarly route, now when you go on a university route, you in a university, they probably it ain't that much scrutiny because you in the university. You pass. But sometimes when you go the scholarly route where you learn in books at a time, different than a university, they might pile up 3-4 sciences on you. When you go sit with a scholar, you might just sit with that scholar and then y'all go through Sahih Bukhari, but it might take you 4 years. It might take him a year, 2 years to explain it to you. The explanation of all the hadiths, you take your notes, you learn your quiz, and then he quiz you, and then after y'all get to a certain set, then you have to teach all of that back to them. If you're not a trustworthy person and you got some stuff going on, some scholars won't let you sit with them. They're not going to give you no ijazah. They're not finna attach you to no isnads. Now you just have people who saying this and that, like they could really give people and put people on the isnad and all this other type of stuff. You don't even know them. You don't know if they're trustworthy. You don't know if they're going to take this piece of paper and then go start corrupting people in their community, acting like they something that they not. That's why it's made clear on the one that I showed y'all to show that there's a thing called a listening ijazah. Yes, I sat in a class and got taught by this person, but it was meant for us to get taught like in a lecture form. We didn't get our knowledge tested, whether we understand it, whether we fell asleep through the lecture, which some people did. Alhamdulillah, I didn't, but some people did. But because they was there, they didn't get caught sleep. They still got the ijazah, but it's made clear this isn't tazkiyah or a license for this person to teach. So these things will be on your ijazah. So like people tell, yeah, man, we're going to attach you to this. It's not because they don't understand. Like how I said, this is an ijazah with a connected chain. The person who's teaching it is connected to this one, that was connected to this one, that was connected to the original person who did this poem, and then he taught it and approved somebody else to teach. But that's why they make sure they're trustworthy people. You don't even know some of these people because they know that stuff is foolishness, man. But they able to get away with it because of what? Because we be lacking in knowledge, man. Just like with me breaking down Tafsirs, Hadith, how these sciences work and what they for, as me trying to make it as basic as I can without using super duper big words that I keep. And trying to sound overly scholarly, without trying to sound overly scholarly. So once you understand how these things work, then you can see how a person from Hadith might have a difference with a person who's strictly Maliki in Fiqh. You see what I'm saying? A person from Sharia might not agree on a particular thing with a person who's strictly Hanafi in fiqh. A person whose science is in Quran and Tafsirs, they might have a difference with them because they looking at, oh, you just looking at the Quran. You don't have all this other, this and that, but the Quran is the usul. That's the foundation. You see what I'm saying? So you just have to really know what's to it. And like, okay, so like the brother saying to me, you know, like, when did I realize I didn't understand Salafiyah? Just to make this short, in the very beginning, in like 2002, when I had the introduction to Dawood Adib, and the brother Nakir gave me the lecture by him, right? This was in the MySpace days. So Nakir gave me, sent me a lecture by him. He sent me some lectures by Abu Tauba, Imam Siraj Wahaj, and Dawood Adib. Alright? So, when I was listening to him, the one he had on the punishment in the grave, I was like, okay, this is nice. Then he sent me another one. I was like, alright. But Abu Tauba sounded more, it ain't no sound. Abu Tauba was more educated than him. I can see it through the listening to it. But then there was some brothers in Jersey who was Salafi also, but they was under the Abu Uwais Act. So they was milder. I'm going to put it this way. They was more like the Tahirs and the Mufti now. Abu Dawood, like I said, they wasn't Salamin people that didn't have a full beard. So I was like, I didn't take to it. I wouldn't call myself Salafi. I agree that you should have an understanding Quran, and you should understand Islam like the companions and the Salaf, but I didn't gravitate to it. So fast forward to 2010, when I started toying with it. In 2010, I started listening to Abu Khadijah. Let me see what's to it. So the harshness and stuff I never liked. I didn't agree with it. So I just started calling myself Salafi, but I didn't align myself with them. And I really didn't align myself with anybody because the other side was all in school. So I didn't align myself with it, but I agree with it. Okay, yeah, we should separate ourselves from the Tabligis, and that was my understanding. So I always seen a different side. So anyway, I was talking to somebody, and they was Tabligi because I moved to another city. I moved here. I moved to this city and started going to the masjid. And at the time, it was a Wharfdeen Tabliki masjid, right? I always say that. So I had read a full set of Sahih Bukhari, and that saved me so much. So when I'm seeing things in the masjid, I'm like, yo, this ain't right. And then they would be like, well, this is a Hanafi masjid. Like they have on a prayer schedule, this is Hanafi, this, that, and the third, right? So they kept calling me a Wahhabi. I didn't say to nobody I was Salafi or nothing like that. I was just sticking to everything I seen in Sahih Bukhari because I was used to Dalil people. The individuals, like I said, who was in Jersey on the Abu Uwais Act, they was big on Sahih Bukhari. So the people who I used to talk to and deal with then, we was Bukhari heavy and like really read it. So when I was talking to them and they was talking about they was Hanafi, listening to them, I also thought listening to the Abu Khadijah and them side. I listened to them because, you know, the message is you got to be serious, you know, Salafi, this, that, but the way they treated people, I never cared for. So I know how to take the message in. I don't have to fall. I don't got to act like that. But they also had me at one point in time thinking that the people from the madhab wasn't from the Salaf. Dakik, one more thing, hold on. So I'm in between. These people trying to force a madhab on me. They trying to force an extreme version of Salafiyah on me. But I already have a misunderstanding of what it is. So due to that, what I did was I bought this book right here. Beautiful book. This is a person who also used to teach and lecture in the Prophet Masjid like years ago, right? And I'm talking about like he was around though with the students of Imam Abu Hanifa. Okay? So it's called Should I Follow a Particular Madhab? So he was talking about things that they changed in the Hanafi madhab, like the pointing the finger. So as I'm reading it, I was like, these people from the Salaf don't have the same understanding. So I thought I was tripping. Just from this little book. And then when I started talking to them about Imam Hanifa, so when I go, I said, well, I'm going to study the Hanafi madhab just a little bit. Just enough so I could see what's to them. So then I started looking at the timeline when he was around. I was like, man, this brother from the third generation. He's from the Salaf. Then I switched to Imam Malik because I'm a Hadith person and find out they got the Muwatta of Imam Malik. I get the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Now I'm looking at this and I'm like, yo, this like a book of Hadith. Which is said it, but it has some other stuff in it. So now I'm saying, he was around before Imam Malik. He's from the second generation. He's from the Salaf, but they don't agree. So now I'm looking at Shafi, I'm looking at Hanbali, and I'm like, so then I started looking at other, but after I looked at them, it clicked in my head. I'm running around here talking about, I follow Quran and Sunnah with the understanding of the Salaf, and even if you throw in Salaf or Salih, the righteous ones, and outside of the Rasul, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, Ali, Bilal, Khalid bin Walid, just a handful. I couldn't even name 10 people from the Salaf. But then when it came to Umar, Abu Bakr, outside of a couple of hadiths, I didn't even know the understanding that they had. So I said, yo, something not right about this. So then, wallahi, I ended up ordering Bazmul, Sheikh Bazmul. He wrote a book on Salafiyah, the Minhaj of the Salafi, right? I got his book. When I started reading it, I said, man, this ain't what these brothers is teaching. So I said, okay, maybe, so I ended up getting another book about Salafiyah. So then they started talking about ijma. The understanding of following Quran and Sunnah with the understanding they had means what the majority of them agreed on. Because as I'm reading Tafsirs and now understanding what I'm looking at, because I'm reading Tafsirs for the ruling, but when it's saying this person said and Ibn Abbas and this, these two said this, these two said that, I didn't realize these people from the Salaf. But I'm like 3-4 books in Tafsirs of Ibn Kathir. You can see where they had differences in Tafsirs Ibn Kathir about Quran ayats. Okay? So that's when I said something ain't right. Something ain't right. You know what I'm saying? And that's when, by 2012, I was keeping up with students. So I knew about Shadid Muhammad because Shadid Muhammad was the first African American person I knew that I heard of that was graduating from the College of Hadith, and Hadith was my thing. So when he came home, he was on an episode of the Dean Show. Graduate from the, he was fresh home. He was still dealing with that other side of the Salafi at this point in time, before they so-called kicked him off the minhaj. So I started listening to him. And then him and Abu Khadijah was the only two people that I listened to. When Abu Khadijah attacked him because he was doing a Hadith class. To this day, still one of the best Hadith classes I ever seen. I wish they would have never bothered that brother, man. If y'all would have seen the Shadid Muhammad in 2012, 13, up to 14-ish, you would have been amazed. They changed that brother, man. They changed that brother. You can see his anger and stuff now. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, he was doing a thing, and he was talking about how Ibn Taymiyyah said how the Salaf used to differ in Aqidah. And they did. And I'm listening to the lecture, but all this is still new to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just soaking it in, and I'm taking notes. And this wasn't on YouTube. I forgot the website he used. It ended up being on YouTube, but we used to catch it live. Like now how you can catch him live on Facebook and Instagram and all that. I forgot the website that they was using back then. It wasn't on YouTube though. And so I'm listening to it live. So then when Abu Khadijah attacked him, talking about this imbecile said the Salaf different in Aqidah, he's such a dummy, he called himself a graduate and all this, and I was like, hold on. That brother didn't say that. He said Ibn Taymiyyah said it. So I caught it in real time. So then the attacking got worse. They started talking about they seen him at the movies with his girl after 9 o'clock. They said he was at the movie with his girl and his daughter after 9 o'clock. But at the time, he had all sons. He didn't even have no daughter at the time. So I was like, man, something. So I couldn't figure, wallahi. I was like, man, why are they doing this? So I stopped listening to Abu Khadijah and started listening to Hassan Somali. That's how I got turned on to Hassan Somali, because they used to have Salafi radio. And they have all these different Salafi channels. And I caught Salafi, and you know, they played 24 hours a day. But when I was listening to Shadid Muhammad, the way he was talking about Salafiyah, it lined up with what Bazmoon wrote in his book, right? And then the other book I had called Principles of the Salafi Minhaj, something like that. It was black with gold letters on it. Real nice. What Shadid Muhammad was saying lined up with what the book said. What they were saying was just, we call ourselves Salafi to distinguish from other Sunnis. And you can't say that you a Sunni Muslim. That crap. So that's when I said, all right. So once I seen that what Shadid Muhammad was saying was lining up with the book, when he mentioned other students, I started looking for people more that route. But I still kept listening to Hassan Somali. And when he had classes on the weekend at Germantown, I still would listen to that. You know what I'm saying? And then I remember, but I ain't gonna continue on. But that's when I realized it, and I realized I don't know the understanding that people from the Salaf had. So I started buying biographies. I'm gonna show y'all one more book, Beneficial, Daki. So what I did was, this was just the first thing that I could find that had enough companions in it. It's like 18, 19 companions, right? The shining stars amongst the prophet companions. So it's a brief biography, but it showed what was great about them, what was to them, and how they practice Islam. So let me look to the Salaf, starting with the Sahaba first, and seeing what they understanding was. And they got all of them, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Bilal, Khalid bin Walid, Salman al-Farsi, Abu Dhar. Beautiful. And wallahi, I ain't afraid to admit it. At one point, every morning before work, reading this book, I was crying. This book had me crying. Seeing what some of them went through for the deen and some of them dying. Now, I had already read the Sealed Nectar, but now I'm starting to learn the understanding that they have. How they implemented, what was the methodology that they did when they came across a problem or an issue. You see what I'm saying? Then that's when I started growing. But before then, I was just running around like the rest of the knuckleheads. Which like even if some people wasn't willing to call themselves Salafi, I get mad. I see you don't understand, you don't know this and that. You don't have to call yourself Salafi if you don't want to. You don't have to. It's not mandatory. But I used to, because like I said, I would be listening to them, and I had finally got me a decent enough connect in Philly where I started going up there. And now I'm up there moving around. I went in Germantown Masjid and I'm sitting around there. I went to a conference up there and then started going to Jersey. And some of that harshness rubbed off on me. You know what I'm saying? It did, because when I come back here, now I gotta listen to this Top Bleaky, this War of Deen stuff, and then I'm catching little bid'ahs and all this stuff, and then the African Americans, oh man, yeah, that's that Wahhabi stuff. They don't even know who Abdul Wahhab was. That's that Wahhabi stuff. You one of those Salafis. And now I'm looking at them like, man, y'all stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like I was gonna get the cooties by standing next to him. And once I noticed that about myself, I was like, yo, I'm starting to feel like I hate them. You know what I'm saying? Like, wallahi, I started feeling like I hated them. And now I'm sitting around like, man, y'all sitting around listening to all this bid'ah, but everything that was going on, it wasn't bid'ah. It was just Hanafi madhab. But, I had got that little bit of influence, just a little bit, but that stuff didn't last 2 months. Because it just wasn't me. But I kept reading and educating myself until I found classes. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm listening to Shadid, so I'm balanced. I'm listening to Shadid. I'm still listening to Abu Tauba. I still listen to Imam Siraj Wahaj. It was a few people. I even used to listen to what was his name, man? He was a white guy, man. Yashua Evans. But he used to break down like the Bible and all this other little stuff. So I was listening to it's a few people, man, they kind of stomped them out. The Salafis attacked them, man, and they just really kind of faded out the dawah scene. I was listening to Hakeem Quick. I listened to a little Bilal Phillips, and I'm glad I just mentioned that. Not a lot, but I listened to him a little because I knew he was a graduate. And Hakeem Quick, I just listened to him about history and the truth about holidays. Khalid Yasin, I used to listen to him, right? But Bilal Phillips, so around 2006, when Bilal Phillips was starting that online Islamic University, before he got all these scholars on board and they revised it. Like you could go to that school and get a bachelor's degree. It's broken down in all the sciences. Everything you could get at the university, you could get there. A bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, real scholars. It's a real Islamic university. Now, when he first started it, it was kind of general. But I let them Salafis, listening to them, Bilal Phillips, listening to Dawood Adib, Bilal Phillips, he's this, he's that, and I hadn't really listened to him, so I didn't register. I didn't sign up for the university. Now, like a year later, 2007, matter of fact, 2008, I just registered for, like, they had some free courses, and I just registered to see what was to it, and it was decent, but I was such a Hadith fanatic. He had some things in there that was based off of Fiqh, off Hanafi madhab, and because I didn't agree with it, but I went as far as it till I got to, like, they had an Arabic course, and I didn't know no alphabet or none of that, so I just stopped dealing with it because I'm listening to them. That's innovator stuff, man. I wish I would have did it. So now by the time I find out the truth and go back to register for the university, where you can get a scholarship, where they done brought all these different scholars in from Azhar University and all this, like they bringing in the curriculum from the real universities, and you can get a scholarship. But they do it just like the university. If you was over the age of 25, you couldn't get a scholarship. And then they was taxing though, like a couple of $1,000s per semester, something like that. So I was salty, man, because I allowed them to take me out of that. Listening to them, listening to that foolishness, man. And that class, man, that course, because, like, once I started learning, and then, like, I went and looked at that stuff, man, in, like, 2016, 2017, and they still got some free diploma courses. Like, it's like 3-4 diplomas that you can get without being in the university. Like, they got, like, the Fiqh Tahara and some of those stuff. I probably had to go look at my thing, but wallahi, whatever they had a little diploma for that was free, I went ahead and I went and got all of them. You know what I'm saying? Wallahi, I went ahead and just got all of them, and I was like, man, this stuff is decent. But they turning people away from it. This is an online Islamic university where you can get a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and a PhD in Sharia, in Fiqh, in Hadith, Tafsir, Aqidah, theology. Yeah. Real professors, real online, real classes. You could get a tutor. You could get a scholarship if you know what I'm saying? And I let them mess it up for me. And I always say it don't matter how old I get. If I ever get caked up, I'm going to go ahead and just pay for the class. I don't care how old I be. And I'm going to go through there and get me a PhD or whatever. Whatever I could get, I'm going to sign up and get it. You know, but you know, Qadr of Allah, mashallah. And because now the way I had to go, it's almost like scholarly route. I had to go here. They teaching this book. They teaching this poem. They teaching this. They teaching this, a little bit of this portion of the science of Jawad Tardil. So I had to slide with Thea here. He's a master's. He in a master's program, or he's working on his PhD here, or you get in with him. He invite you to a thing where the scholars is on there, and you can sign up. But I might have to pay $25, $30, $50. You know what I'm saying? And then we sitting there with the scholars and this and that, and then I go through this, get the ijazah. So I got to go that route. But had I not let them mess me up, I probably have a PhD right now. But, Qadr of Allah, mashallah. So I seen how that stuff, how it affected me, man. But I will say from about 2012 to 2014, maybe 15, I was rocking with what they was talking about, but I didn't mistreat people. But like I said, I started feeling that like when I was going to Jumar and I'm walking in there, and them Hanafis and them Tabligis and stuff that be in there because it's they masjid, and the War of Deen community that was in there, not the War of Deen, and I'm going to be honest, I wasn't feeling like I hated them because they was black. we had a black connection, and they was a lot older than me, and I always respect my elders, no matter what color they is. But some of them tablighi dudes and some of that weird stuff they used to say, like I'm going in Juma and I'm feeling like I hate them because of listening, letting them instill certain things in me that shouldn't have been there. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, man, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.